Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field.
Hey, have you ever been faced with the challenge of sourcing, installing, and programming a used control module in a vehicle? I know a lot of us have. It seems to be happening more and more often today with the volume of control modules on vehicles, the cost of some new ones, or even the availability of new control modules. In some cases, used may be the only option. So what do you do here? I strongly recommend checking out SJ Auto Solutions and Tommy Oliva. Tommy offers a cloning service for used control modules to make these things plug and play for the vehicle that you're working on. In a lot of cases, he is also able to source the control modules if you're unable to locate one for the vehicle that you're working on. But once you get connected with Tommy, he's going to offer fantastic support from start to finish to make sure that that control module is going to work in your application. He's also got tech support that he offers through his website, along with some free resources there as well on information about used control module programming. So make sure to check out SJ Auto Solutions. I can't recommend that enough. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping. I'll be your host once again for this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Just me on the show this week, and I'm going to be bringing you some of my most recent thoughts working in the automotive space, which is what I do primarily on this show. And, a lot of the times that is a case study on a vehicle or a particular topic that we're dealing with on vehicles while we're out in the field. Today's a little bit different, although if you've been listening recently, this is a recurring topic for me, and I don't mean to turn the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast into every other episode is about AI tools, but I would be doing everyone who's listening a disservice if I wasn't talking about literally the coolest things that are actually making a difference in, fixing cars and my business that I have going on. And that is these tools that I'm going to be talking about today. Now, specifically what I want to dial in on, because obviously I've talked about a lot of various things with AI systems and, some of the agentic opportunities that are out there right now. I talked about that a few episodes ago, but today I want to dial in specifically on something which can be really useful to you as a technician or potentially as a business owner, is actually creating your own software. And I've talked to several people about this because I've been experimenting with this and developing some stuff for myself and for the technicians and my business as a whole. And not everything's a hit. Sometimes you'll make something and okay, it's not quite as useful. It doesn't do the thing that I was hoping it would. But then other times, if you keep experimenting with this, when we have built things that are actually really useful and really move things along with the productivity of the business, or just, something that helps us so we're not wasting time. That's usually the idea of software, is to help you complete or automate some sort of process, speed something up, a repetitive task, like we've talked about before, but that you can make your own for whatever pain point you have in your daily operations, fixing cars, running a business, whatever it might be. Like, that pain point, and you can potentially build a software to help you with that. Now, when I talk to people about this and I tell them what I've built with it, and I'll share some examples here as well, the most common response I've gotten from just about everybody, especially in my personal life, is like, I would have no idea where to begin with this. Like, I don't understand any software coding, building software. I wouldn't even know where to start. And the fact of the matter is, hey, me either. I was talking about this with somebody just a couple of days ago. I'm like, I should not be able to build software. Like, I don't have that skill set. I have never taken a course on software coding. I've never built any of my own software. I don't know how to operate in the terminal, which is like the black command screen that comes up on Windows. Like, I don't know any of that stuff. I've never taken any time. I've never taken any classes. It's just not something that I know how to do. Can I operate a computer? Can I operate software programs? Sure. And I think the amount of work that I have had with computers, with Windows, with laptops, has helped me a little bit. But the tools that are now available to you with some of these AI models jumps things ahead like crazy. It's like I've learned a lot of stuff, and it's like I've gotten to sit shotgun with an expert coder. And that's really what this is. You can interact with some of these AI tools, and all you need to know is, okay, what is the pain point, right? What is the thing that is eating up my time, that is repetitive, that is wasting time in my day, but it is something that, I need to get done, right? I need to find this calibration within this 1,500 page document. I need to reference this hardware number and figure out if it's compatible with the vehicle it's trying to go in. I need to find this file that needs to go into this Nissan from 15,000 files that I have stored between a Google Drive and a laptop folder. These sort of things that, yes, we've built, shortcuts and, okay, we figured out how to use Control F and the ways to search for things to speed things up. But if there is something like that, where you're like, this is a clunky part of the process, right? This on a regular basis slows things down, right? And here's the thing, you know that best. I can't tell you what that is. I'll give you some suggestions of what's been good for me, but you know the things that are hanging you up and that are repetitive, and that if you could imagine just, doing what that is with a click of a button, it would be great. Those are the types of things. So, and that's actually a really important part, because, the people who build software traditionally, right, before these systems, aren't necessarily going to be the people who know what the pain point is, right? That's you. You're in it every day. You're experiencing it. And it might be something that is very unique to what you are doing. And we find that within mobile, right? That there's other mobile companies out there, there's other programmers out there. But if you take the general workforce as a whole, even just within the automotive space, our problems are very unique compared to everybody as a whole. And so understandably, there might just not be a whole lot of effort put into building something that is going to relieve the pain point that I have, particularly with my job. That is not true anymore, because you can build something that is uniquely specific as you want it to be to solve your specific problem. You just need to know exactly what that is. And of course, it's probably going to have something to do with a computer. Obviously, if it's outside of the computer, it's in the physical world. Not to say that you couldn't build something that would help you, but this is generally going to have things to do with stuff that is on a computer, on a laptop, connected to some sort of drive, some sort of digital information. But obviously, fixing cars nowadays, there is a ton of that. So again, finding what that pain point is, what the problem that you need to solve is, that's going to be you. But I have a feeling you could come up with a few things where you're like, this sucks. I hate doing this. It eats up so much time. I am happy to have Automotive Seminars as a sponsor for the show. Now, if you're not familiar, Automotive Seminars is a diagnostic technician training company. They've got a website that there'll be a link to in the show notes. And what they offer is top-notch training to technicians like us in the field. I've been taking their training courses for years and have got a ton of benefit out of it. They've got top-notch instructors, John Thornton, Scott Shotton, Scott Manna, and every other month they've got a 2-night course that you can sign up for. Join in, ask questions, and afterwards, you've paid for the course, you can access a recorded version whenever you want. You can rewatch the class 2 years later in case you wanted some details on it. And that is a fantastic feature. So make sure to check out the website to see what courses they have available and what's coming up in the future. It's clunky. It's really repetitive. It wastes my time, right? I'd be willing to pay somebody else to do this instead of me doing it. Those are the types of things, okay? So you get your problem, you identify your pain point. And now you just need to articulate that problem to one of these AI models. Now, I do want to pause there and touch on that there are obviously various types of AI large language models out there. And at the moment, there are a number of companies that are competing for that top spot in a number of different categories, but obviously there's a lot of money up for grabs for whoever can be the best. And if you follow it all, what's out there right now, as far as the American companies go, which are generally perceived to be at the top overall, there are some Chinese companies that are doing impressive things, but from the US, it's Anthropic, OpenAI, and then Google with Gemini. And ChatGPT or OpenAI, that was kind of the first one that came around in the fall of 22. And obviously I've talked about it and I've used it plenty and I still do. Google's Gemini has also been along for the ride and they've come and gone as far as the usefulness. I actually think they've made some big strides in the last 6 months. So if you haven't tried out Gemini, give it a try. And Gemini does work really well within the Google workspace, right? So if you're already using like the G Suite or the workspace for Google and you have Google Docs and Sheets and all of that stuff, it does work really well within that ecosystem, obviously, it's all Google. I would say its overall capabilities compared to the other two still might be a little bit behind, but the one personally that I feel is ahead of everyone right now, and this is March 15th, 26, that could change in 6 months easily, probably will. But right now, it's Anthropic and Claude. And especially for building software systems, it is 100% the best. And the reason that I can say this, and again, it's personal opinion, so maybe you disagree or there might be specific things where the other models might be ahead or might be better. But when I have something new that I'm going to attempt to do that maybe I haven't solved yet with any AI model is I will put the prompt into all three and just hit go on all of them. And then I will review the output from all three. And then I'll see, okay, which one is getting me to where I need to go the smoothest and the most accurately. Of course, it does depend on what I am attempting to do. But honestly, over the last 6 months, that has routinely been Claude. That ends up being the best and the most accurate and moves me along better than the other models. So it's the one that I've been using for this. I talked about using OpenClaw, and that you do have a choice of what model that runs on, but the one I have runs on Claude's Opus 4.6, which is their most advanced operating system that they have out right now. But it seems to be the best, right? And when I say the best, like the answer that you get, I get that like, oh, wow, that's a really good answer for either a question I'm asking, research I'm trying to perform, or a thing I'm trying to build. It most often gets me that like, oh, damn, that's awesome. I'm blown away by the output from it and what it's able to do. And it seems to be more intuitive to understanding what I am trying to accomplish without all the extra fluff. And that is one thing about ChatGPT. I'm not the only one who's observed this, is it's just like sometimes it gives you so much, and you can regulate that, right? Don't get me wrong. You can instruct it to, hey, keep your answer brief and to the point, and you can adjust it, but that's just seems to be built into Claude at the moment. Anyways, pick your model that you like the best. Experiment too, because again, tomorrow one could be better, right? There's a new model that comes out, and then all of a sudden Gemini is ahead or OpenAI is ahead. The one thing about this is if you're not experimenting with these things on a regular basis, and let's say you haven't really done anything with it within 6 months, the technology and the outputs have completely changed in that time frame. The thing, it's moving so fast and it's getting better so fast. Again, kind of scary if you extrapolate it out, because I don't think that's going to slow down at all. But for right now, as far as the capability of what these have, if you haven't tried it out in a while, give it a try, because it's significantly better than it was 6 months ago, a year ago, whatever time frame. So anyways, right now, again, I'm using Claude, but pick your AI, identify your pain point, and then you want to articulate that pain point and what you'd like to accomplish to whatever model that you pick. Okay. So let's just use an example here. We use the Fed World Report. If you've never Googled this, just Google Fed World Report for Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Stellantis vehicles when they need an update for either a PCM or a TCM. It's a powertrain module. Now, there's other ways that you can find whether there's a software update for a particular module. You can go to the Stellantis website and figure this out as well. Obviously, you could be hooked up with YTech, but away from the car, we need a method. But one of the reasons that I utilize the Fed World Report is that it also includes the applicable hardware for PCMs and TCMs. It is only powertrain modules, and then it does include like a couple other ones on some models, but primarily it's PCM and TCM, but it gives you the applicable hardware. And so one of the more common things that we get is used replacement ECMs, PCMs on these Chrysler Dodge vehicles. And sometimes the hardware is different, and we can correct the software part of it, but only if the hardware is correct for that application. Now, you might say, well, just look up the part number for the car, and if it's not the part number, it's not right. Not exactly. There are hardware applications, or there are vehicles that can utilize multiple hardware applications, right? And some of the hardware applications work across a lot of different models within the various Chryslers that have been manufactured. So just because it's not an exact match for the hardware doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. It might work. And here's the other thing. Sometimes we get them where we don't have the original. And so again, we could look up the hardware number, but that's how I utilize this sheet, right? To figure out, okay, do I have the most current software update? Like, what software is this car supposed to have, because it tells you the make and the model? And then is the hardware applicable, or what hardware would I need? And we just use a series of Control F and screenshots to be able to figure this out for this report. But what I did was, because it's a little bit of a tedious process, and I have it down with some Control F, I guess I wouldn't even really call it tedious, but I've done this a ton. I've done this hundreds of times, looking up various modules and softwares here. My employees, especially maybe a new employee, has not done that as often. And so I made a video on how to do it, giving an example of a Jeep that had a TCM that was thrown in it, and it turned out, I think it was the wrong hardware. And I went through and figured out, okay, this is the wrong hardware in this Jeep. We don't have the original one, but we can tell like it's not going to work in this application. And using that Fed World Report to show that these are the ones that would be acceptable, but this one isn't. And here's how we know based off the software, that sort of stuff. And so that's my example to any employee that kind of wants to train on this stuff. And they've got to do it a few times, and it's clunky at first. But I explained all of this in plain English. And there's another thing I want to pause on. When you're doing this, you are literally just talking to one of these AI models. You can use the transcription or the dictation feature, the little microphone once you're in the application, and just talk to it and explain, here's the thing that's hanging me up. Here's the tedious process, the repetitive process, the thing that wastes a bunch of time. And here's what I want out of it, right? Here's the reason why I'm doing it. And here's what it would be nice if a software could do this for me and take care of the control F and search and then go to the next one and search and then explain that to it, which is exactly what I did, right? I explained how I use the document, what's in the document, where I look, and how I use it to compare. And then it gets to work with you on building something that is going to do that for you, right? It's just a big PDF. So you're going to feed it the PDF. It's a 1,500 page document, explain what's what. It's going to go through it. And that's where this gets really cool is you may not know exactly how to convert the data within a PDF into a software, but it does. And that's where I'm going along, riding shotgun on an expert coder that is now building a software because it knows exactly how to take this data and then condense it down or put it into a format, which then it's going to be able to reference and then do what you want. So now what we have from this tool is something where we can either put in the software number and then it tells us, here's what it's for, here's if there are any updates, and here's the compatible hardware. Or we can put in a hardware number and then it tells us what that hardware applies to. And it's just one software application that we load from the desktop. We can even do it offline. You can do it on a computer, or you can do it on a phone, and you punch in those numbers and then it gives you the output based on that Fed World Report. Now, if there's updates to it, we'll have to update its reference point, but it's not very difficult. But it built this out for me I had it done in a matter of a couple hours while I was doing other stuff. That's the other thing. Is the building, the actual like heavy lifting and the coding and stuff. This is happening behind the scenes, with the AI tool. And you can actually pull down and look at the coding as it's building it. And it'll probably, and it should have questions for you along the way. And then you'll test it out and you'll try to, okay, maybe this doesn't work exactly like I thought, or I forgot about doing this one particular thing. Can we go back and can we change this? And then it can edit it and it can add things and it can adapt. And that's the other cool thing. Like I mentioned, you may have a specific problem and you may want things specifically your way. You can ask it for that. You can build it so that it takes care of whatever your problem is the exact way that you want it to take care of. You literally just have to know what the problem is and then explain what you want fixed or what you want it to do to it. And it's going to be able to build something for you or suggest a way to build something for you that's going to take care of that. And that's it. And that's where this is so cool because, like I said, I don't know how to code stuff. I don't know how to build software, but I know what problems we have. I know where the sticking points are in the day-to-day and the things that hang me up and the things that I get calls about, maybe from my employees, and that I have to, make a video on or explain. And now I can just point to, hey, just punch it into this software, right? Here's the tool. You put this number in, it gets you the output. Boom, you're done. Okay. Now, again, maybe we have to update, maybe we have to tweak. But the fact that we can actually make these things and then make them however we want with whatever details or features that we want to add, we can make it better whenever I have the time and the desire to go in and work on these things and tweak them. And we've been doing this with a number of different things within the business that are speeding things up, making things more accurate, and automating a lot of tasks that we would normally take a lot of time on. The other one I mentioned was the Nissan file lookup. For anybody that's programmed Nissans, you have probably had an instance where you purchase the file, because that's how you program a Nissan, either a blank or an update, is you purchase the file and then you put it into the repro programming folder that Consult lives on. And when you go to put it in that folder, it says, do you want to replace this folder or this file? And you're like, I already had that file and I just spent another $55, which they just keep bumping the price up on those files all the time because you can reuse those files. After you buy it, you can use it as many times as you want if you're programming that same application. So you don't need to spend the $55 on the next one. But searching for those files is not the most straightforward thing. And I had figured out how to go into the CSV lookup table or the HTML and then actually find the file name that I need to search for within the drive. And then you can find it. But again, that's clunky. It's time consuming. It's a thing I've actually had a tough time like really getting clear across, to my employees all the time. They struggle with the details on it. We end up buying files that we don't need. This software does all of that for us. It not only tells you, like, we put in the name of the file as it appears on the website, because that's the problem, is the website, the Nissan website, doesn't tell you the file name until you buy it and download it. Then you have it, of course. But you can get what file you need off the Nissan website, put it into this tool. It not only has the capability of checking our drive and our laptops, and that's a little extra. That's the extra thing I wanted to add to this. But it tells you the file name. So then you can actually search the file name if you wanted to, but I took it a step further, and the software just tells us if we have it and where it is. And if it's not there, okay, then let's buy it. But that saves us an enormous amount of time, number one, of going back and forth and using Control F within these spreadsheets. And that's good to know how it works. And I would say if you're going to solve a problem, you should already know how to solve it. You just want an automated way to solve it, a better, faster, less time-consuming way to solve it. But you should probably know how to actually solve the problem, but you've realized that, man, this eats up a lot of my time every time I do it, or it's difficult to explain to someone else how to do it. That's where this comes in handy. And then you can articulate that even better to your tool that's building the software. Is like, hey, here's what I do to solve the problem. Can you build something that does that? And then it'll say, yeah, okay, let's give this a try. Let's do this. And you can add things and you can adjust. So those are just a couple examples of what we've done. And again, I just want to stress as much as possible, these aren't tools that I'm building because I'm an expert coder or I understand any of that stuff. Again, just going to what I've had people say to me is like, I would have no idea where to start. It's literally just identifying the problem, articulating it well, and then iterating with it until it does what you want it to do. And you'll be amazed the output that you can get out. One final note that I should mention is when you are building these tools with these AI systems, it is going to burn tokens, right? And there's various levels of free and paid plans. And so depending on where you're at, you might hit your limit on a particular application. And then, of course, you have to weigh, is the money I'm spending, on this subscription worth the output that I'm getting, right? And that's for you to decide. For me personally and my business, what I'm able to do with these things is well worth the money that I'm spending on it. But I do just want to throw that out there so that nobody's mistakenly thinking that you can do this on the free plan for one of these applications. You might be able to get started, but it's going to hit its limit pretty quick. And then you'll be like, oh, okay, I can't finish it. Just be aware that, the tokens do cost money. And so you'd have to be willing to put in a little bit of cash to get some of these systems going, depending on what you're trying to do. Maybe your project is straightforward and simple and you don't need much, but the more complex and the more iterations of it that you build, the more data that's going into it, that's all going to, consume resources. And I think with time that price will come down, right? Especially as different companies are being more competitive and they build in efficiencies within the AI systems themselves. But, it's not an infinite resource at the moment. And so you may run up against those limits as you're experimenting and trying to build with this stuff. But really what I wanted to get across to everybody listening, and again, the prime candidates for something like this, our listeners of this show, is to find something in your day-to-day that is, like I mentioned, that's a repetitive pain point, and go to one of these systems and just see, hey, can you build me something that is going to solve or help me solve this problem or automate this task or get past this thing a little bit quicker, more efficiently than I would be able to otherwise. And those are the type of things that really move the needle throughout your day. It's cool, but they're not just toys, right? They're actually helping you in production. They're moving things along. They're making you more productive. And like I talked about with the AI agents, is they're freeing you up for things that actually move the needle, the things that you do best, that only you can do, that there's no way an AI could do one particular task, or this particular task makes you the most amount of money in your business or your job. Now, you don't have to be, searching through PDFs, wasting your time doing that, right? It's a means to an end that has to happen, but you can speed that up. You can automate that part. So I encourage everybody to look for something like that in your day-to-day, and then experiment with one of these tools and see what you can build. And please let me know, right? Shoot it to me in Messenger if you don't want to share it public, or put it in the Facebook group and show, like, what have you built? What have you done with one of these tools? Because it's pretty cool stuff. But that's where I'm going to wrap this one up today. I really appreciate everybody listening, all the feedback I get about the show. If I don't get back to you immediately, don't think I'm ignoring you. I try to get back to everybody I can. I know some of them do slip through the cracks, but I appreciate everybody that listens to the show. So with that out of the way, let's get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.
Yeah.